Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Welcome back for another Pulse of Israel video. Very, very special. I get to sit once again with Rabbi Vigler here in South Florida. Beautiful, beautiful kahila that he's developed over 19 years?
19 years.
19 years. And I just want to, even before asking you to share some inspiration with the whole world, it's just fabulous. You were just touching upon in your after Shacharit talk and videos and Torah learning with the Rebbe, how you came here 19 years ago and there was nothing, and now you have a cheder, an elementary school, 350 children, and it's just phenomenal. Like not everyone understands the self-sacrifice that shluchim, that Chabad rabbis and their wives, and bringing their children out to communities with virtually very little to nothing, no Jewish life whatsoever, and then you develop beautiful communities, giving so much to whichever Jews that are in those areas or come to join the areas. And so, thank you.
Thank you.
Kavod, mamash.
Chazak Shemat.
It's a beautiful concept. Everyone appreciates the self-sacrifice and your own children and your own families to be able to do so much.
Thank you, Avi, and I want to thank you for your global community that you have created in your own virtual space, because as a result of your last visit and your last podcast together with me, we have actually managed to bring two beautiful souls together.
Wow.
In the most beautiful, touching story, which is partially private unless I get their permission. But I just want to acknowledge how our podcast on your platform was the impetus to bring two neshamas together, to not unite, but to reunite two half souls, to bring them together in a Bais Nama B'Yisrael. Say shekach.
Unbelievable.
For the miracles that you do without even realizing.
I'm so touched. I
tell your wife that story.
I will tell her, and I got goosebumps when you told me, like, how was I involved in two Jews getting married in your community? It's like, wow, it's mind-blowing. So thank you so much for sharing that. So what beautiful Torah wisdom can you share with us this morning?
As you mentioned moments ago in the shul, we're living in biblical times. We're experiencing miracles of epic biblical proportion. Think about it. For 3,000 years, we've been reading about the borders of Israel, as you've described. I mean, you're talking about the Euphrates to the Nile?
Yeah.
I mean, what would the United Nations say about those borders, right? And now suddenly, Syria? Druze villages are asking to be annexed into Israel? This is incredible. It's almost like Israel almost has a pathway all the way through to Iraq, which is the Euphrates River.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really incredible times. And I think that it's important for us to understand the biblical backdrop that's going on behind the scenes. If we go all the way to the very beginning, we'll notice an incredible tapestry in which we Jews are not mere spectators, but rather active participants empowered with the ability to chart the course of human history. Check this out.
Yeah.
So it all starts in the narrative in which we're in right now in the Torah, when Yaakov confronts his worst nightmare. In this week's parsha, Yaakov confronts Esav. Esav is the first anti-Semite, and he's trying to kill Yaakov. Why is he trying to kill Yaakov? Because Yaakov stole the blessings. When Yaakov stole the blessings from him in a couple weeks ago in the Torah portion, Esav was furious. Esav was incensed. He was crying tears to his father, and he says, "Father, is there not even one more blessing that you can give me?" And Yitzchak tells Esav, he says, "Look, I'm sorry, but I've already made him your master. He's already going to be your master, so there's really nothing I can do for you except one thing. V'haya ka'asher tarid ufarakta ulo me'al tzavarecha." Very difficult words to translate. V'haya ka'asher tarid. I don't know if that already goes into modern Hebrew, but Onkelos explains to us, and Rashi does the same thing. When he walks away from Oraita, says Onkelos, when he walks away from the path of Torah, it's then that you will be able to overcome and to overwhelm him. Which means the blessings are by sanction of Torah. As long as Yaakov adheres to the Torah and values its principles and its mitzvahs and observes the Torah, he's your master. But the moment that Yaakov walks away from that loyalty, he's no longer backed by the guarantee of Torah.
Right.
And now the Jew is exposed, and now the Jew is vulnerable to attack by you, by the anti-Semite. And what's so interesting about that is that if you look back in history, you'll notice I challenge your listeners to see if there was ever a group of Jews, a community of Jews in history, who walked away from Torah values that survived more than 3 or 4 generations. Every Jew that I meet in this area had a Bubby and a Zaidi, who was a rabbi somewhere in Ukraine or Poland or Russia. Everybody had grandparents that were religious, but nobody, you don't see continuity to communities that have strayed from the path of Torah. But there's one more point to this. When Yaakov gets that blessing, he does so in the most unusual manner. There's obviously a conflict between Yitzchak and Rivka. Yitzchak wants to bless Esav. God wanted to bless Yaakov. Now let me ask you a question. What would your wife do? What would your wife do if she felt that you were wrong? If you had made the wrong judgment call about whom to bless? What would you do? She would tell you. I mean, this is the timeless. Very strongly. She would make it sure. Abundantly clear, explicitly clear, unequivocal. Right. There would be no room for this, for confusion here. She'd make it very clear.
You chose the wrong son.
You know, there's a saying in English: if a tree falls in the Amazon,
right,
and there's nobody nearby, it doesn't make a noise. So the question is: if a man is alone in the forest and his wife is nowhere near, is he still wrong? Rivka does not criticize her husband. Instead, she goes into this manipulative, deceptive tactic. She dresses her son Yaakov in the clothing of Esav in order to deceive her blind husband. I mean, what on earth is going on over here? It's a magnificent explanation which I want to share with you, is that Rivka went to such great depths because she was a true Yiddish mama. She had the intuition of a Jewish mother, and she understood the nature of her child. She wasn't out only to have Yaakov blessed in her generation. She wanted to make sure that Yaakov would be blessed in the year 2024. 3,250 years later, she was looking out for us. She needed to make sure that the time would come when Yaakov would be dressed in the clothing of Esav. There would come a time in the future when Yaakov would look like a Gentile. The Jews will dress like Gentiles. They'll talk like Gentiles. They'll maybe behave like Gentiles. And she wanted to make sure that even then, the blessing would still descend upon the Jacob when he's dressed as an Esau. That's the reason why she dressed him in the clothes of Esav. This is a verse from the Chidush Harim, the Gerer Rebbe. But I want to just extend it one step further. In order for Yaakov to prevail over Esav, in order for Yaakov to receive those blessings, which allow him the blessing of dominion over his brother, to become impervious to anti-Semitism, Yaakov needs to be dressed in the clothing of Esav. Yaakov needs to know that he is a man of scholarly tense, and Esav is the skilled hunter. You cannot subcontract military defense. You cannot rely on international guarantees, on United Nations Resolution 1701 that's going to demilitarize southern Lebanon, they said. Remember that? Yeah. And hence was born Hezbollah. Do you remember when the United States guaranteed Israel in 1956, after they conquered the Sinai Desert, that if they pull out of the Sinai Desert, and if Egypt would ever close the Straits of Tiran to Israeli shipping, we will allow you to declare war on Egypt. And guess what happened when Israel when Sadat, right? Yeah. When he closed the Straits of Tiran in 1967, what caused the breakout of the 6-Day War was America was nowhere to be found when Israel said, "Hello, you promised us."
Not only that, there were international forces there, and Egypt, Sadat told the international forces, "Leave, right? Their whole
And
name.
what did they do?
They left.
They just vanished right away.
Just left.
Yes, sir. Right? You know, by the way, that the United States gave an international guarantee to Ukraine in 1990s in the Budapest Memorandum that if Ukraine would only give up their nuclear arsenal,
Right.
then they would guarantee that Russia would never invade Ukraine.
Right.
Yaakov dressing in the clothing of Esav is a message to us in 2023 and 2024 post-October 7th. Don't ever rely on someone else to defend you. Don't rely on the United Nations peacekeeping forces. Don't rely on the United States. Don't rely on international weapons. I believe, was it yesterday, that Israel bought 5 more Navy boats for 2.8 billion shekel from Israeli companies.
Could be.
This is very thing from, look that up.
Really?
If I read that correctly, it was purchased not from American contractors, but from Israeli contractors. Don't hold me ransom. We have to be able to provide our own military defense. So when you have a time like today, when Israel is fighting battles from every which direction, from the Houthis and from Hamas and from Hezbollah and from Syria and Iraq and Iran and from the United Nations and from what they falsely call the West Bank, from the biblical Judea and Samaria, and from the internal column, which is the Jewish anti-Semites that are fighting us from within, when we're fighting this multi-pronged war in every which direction, and from the college campuses, don't forget those guys as well, we have to be able to defend ourselves. We have to be able to know how to fly an F-16 fighter jet and an F-35, and how to drive a tank. But at the same time, military is important. You have to remember the hands are the hands of Esav, yes, but the voice needs to still be the voice of Yaakov. You need to straddle both lanes. You want to invest in the military, that's critically important, yes, but you cannot forget Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. When you go out to battle, when a soldier wears tzitzis, when a soldier wears the yarmulke, and by the way, it's not just the soldiers, because not everybody is able to go out to battle. For example, me, I'm a rabbi in Palm Beach Gardens in Florida. Am I separate from the theater of war? The answer is no, I'm a division in battle. I am a Kol Yaakov, I'm the voice of Jacob, so that I can counter and balance out my brother in the Golan Heights or in Syria or in Lebanon, who is the hands of Esau. And it's only together, as one united organism, that we create the reenactment of the blessing which Rivka designed for Yaakov to receive from his saintly father Yitzchak, dressed in the clothing of Esau, but never forgetting his true identity, which is the voice of Yaakov. It's this synergy together that allows us the blessing of superiority, the blessing of dominance over our brothers, to be able to become immune and impervious to the threats of anti-Semitism because they're crouching at the door. The moment you drop your guard, Esav rises up again. And that's my message. My message is that in today's critical times of biblical proportion, of biblical fulfillment unfolding every day before our eyes, we are not spectators in this field. We are Yaakov. But what are you doing? Are you Yaakov hiding in a closet? Or are you perhaps Yaakov who's fighting on the front lines? That's good. But when you're Yaakov in the front lines, don't forget that you need the synergy of both. You need the voice of Jacob in the hands of Esau. Together, we got a winning equation.
Amen. And it's so beautiful. And one of the reasons I'm here talking and coming to communities to reach out is trying to get as many Jews as possible to internalize that message and understand that Yaakov, the blessing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Yaakov from Yitzchak of dominion, that's not something negative. That's looked at as negative in today's world.
Why?
But the story of the Jews,
by Jews or Gentiles?
By Jews looking at it as negative. No, we don't want to be strong. No, we don't want to be in touch. When we're titled or labeled occupiers, it's a negative connotation. So no, we can't argue. We are just being asked by the Druze communities of Syria to occupy them, to be in charge of them, because they know it's for their benefit. Meaning the blessing of dominion is something that obviously we know it's good, but we have to help instill in our fellow Jews to understand that it's good. It's not just a blessing for us; it's a blessing for those who will live under us, as opposed to the other results if they're not living under us. And what's unfolding in the Middle East and with Syria is showing that so clearly. And it's the internalizing of, yes, this is a blessing. And in Israel today, we have that self-confidence. And we're continuing to live it. I mean, again, I have sons served in Gaza and Lebanon, now
I
in
know
Syria.
your sons are serving.
Right, and they're in Syria, and we're doing what we got to do. Now we have to help understand Jews around the world to not be afraid of what the daily headlines are putting out there that make us look horrible, and we're occupiers, and we're just out for dominion of the other lands. For them to feel secure as Jews in real... No, Israel, the Jewish state of Israel, our third Jewish commonwealth, is doing the right thing, not just to protect the Jews, but for the whole Middle East and for humanity, and by fulfilling the biblical prophecies. God told us to have those borders for a reason. That's how we fulfill our purpose.
So this is the secret of the Torah portion this week, in my opinion. Think about it. 34 years. Yaakov is running away from Esav. Suddenly, in the beginning of this week's parasha, Vayishlach, Yaakov confronts Esav, and hears the ominous message. Esav is coming towards you with 400 men, mercenaries armed to the teeth. This is not a loving brotherly gesture.
He was scared for his life.
Yet, when they actually meet, Vayishakehu, instead of killing him, Esav kisses him. What happened? Beautiful interpretation I want to share with you is that there's an enigmatic encounter in the Torah the night before Vayivater Yaakov levado. It says that Yaakov was left all by himself. Vayavek ishimo, and a man struggled with him. Now I ask you, if Yaakov was alone, how could there have been somebody else?
Oh.
Was he alone? Or was he with someone else? You can't be both. Right? What do you think? Yaakov was indeed alone. The Torah says so explicitly. The man he was struggling with was none other than himself. Because Yaakov, at his age right now, realized, he came to the awareness that he had never made peace with himself. His entire life, he was living in the shadow of his older brother Esav. Think about it. He was born clutching the heel of his brother.
Yeah.
And hence he gets the name Yaakov, which means heel. This is the shame that brands him, that he is a follower on his brother's heels, right? In his brother's footsteps. He seeks to buy the birthright from his brother. When his father asks him his name, he says, Anochi Esav bechorecha. I am Esav, your firstborn. He ends up marrying the woman that was destined to marry Esav, right? Leah. Right. He steals his blessings. Yaakov lives his entire life, so far, in the shadow of his brother Esav. What happened that night is that Yaakov was having an identity crisis. Who am I? And he struggled all night long until he came to the realization that he was limping. That he didn't stand firmly on his own 2 feet. He was a little off. And it was only when he had the courage to face his demons, when he had the courage to admit his fault, his weakness, his trauma, it was only then that he was at the turning point of healing. Yediyah samachla chatzi refuah. Awareness of the illness is halfway to the cure. And it was then that Yaakov had to make this decision that I'm no longer going to be living in the shadow of my brother. I'm no longer going to be a Jew who is apologetic and afraid. I'm no longer going to be that Jew that is apologizing for having survived the Holocaust, that is apologizing for living in the same land and speaking the same language and observing the same observances and customs and mitzvahs for 3,000 years longer than any other nation on the face of this earth. I'm no longer going to apologize. I'm going to rise into my own space. I'm going to rise up to the man I was destined to become. It's then that the Torah declares, no longer are you Yaakov. No longer are you a follower. Now you're Yisrael. Now you are a man who has prevailed, who has struggled with traumas. And now you are able, you have succeeded in struggling over your traumas. Now think about it this way. How do you feel when you come home after work one day and you find somebody in your parking spot? How do you feel?
You're annoyed.
Annoyed. And when you go to shul and somebody's sitting in your seat,
Annoyed.
you're annoyed. When Yaakov is behaving like Esav, When the Jew is trying to act like the Gentile, what happens to the Gentile? He gets ticked off. Get out of my space. But when the moment happens, when the Jew says, you know what, I'm not trying to be the Gentile. I'm not trying to be Asaph.
Right.
I'm going to be myself. I'm not trying to take your parking spot. I'm not trying to take your seat. I'm going to take my seat. Now what happens? Asaph says, oh, I'm not intimidated by this guy anymore. There's no need to bite him. I'm here just to kiss him. And I think that's exactly what you were just saying moments ago about those Jews that are saying, no, we're occupiers. No, we're not chosen. No, we're not really belonging here. We should give back land as if to insinuate that it belonged to someone else more than us. Stop it already.
They're afraid of their shadow.
Stop it already. Embrace your own identity. You're chosen by God.
Amen.
And in the Torah that God gave us, it says, for you and your descendants, I have given this land. Man up. The nations of the world are waiting for us to take our place in the course of history, because until then, the apologetic Jews, the self-loathing Jews, are sitting in somebody else's seat. What more do you want? They're going to be annoyed with you. Take your own seat and everybody will be happy. Anti-Semitism will fall apart. Anti-Semitism will dissipate when the Jew stops trying to be like the Gentile.
Right.
When the Jew starts to find comfort and peace in himself. It's not an easy process. Jacob struggled all night long. And Yaakov, he had to struggle all night long, but eventually he came to it, teaching us the most profound lesson. The Gentiles have no respect for Jews who don't respect themselves. But Gentiles have every respect for Jews who do respect themselves.
And I'll end with, first of all, I love talking to the show. Mind-blowing stuff. Same wavelength, 100%. Beautiful. And yes, follow his YouTube channel and you'll have the link to click on. Bring this all together. A story I heard, I think I shared it yesterday in one of my talks. A Muslim terrorist in jail in Israel had a conversation with the Israeli Jewish jailer. And he said, we're going to win. We're beating you. It's inevitable.
The terrorist said to the jailer.
Right, the Muslim terrorist said to the Jewish Israeli jailer, we're winning, we're going to win. So the Israeli jailer said, what are you talking about? You're in jail, we're fighting you terrorists, we're jailing you. Because you don't want to know why? And again, I'm not saying that I believe every Jew, we're all Jews in the eyes of God, all struggling, trying to be the best Jews we can be, and all try to do as many mitzvot, follow as many commandments as possible. So this isn't a judgmental thing. This is an actual true story. What did this Muslim terrorist say to the jailer in an Israeli jail? We're winning because there are Jews in Israel who eat chametz on Pesach. You're not acting like the Jews. The day the Jewish people act like the Jewish people are supposed to act, that's when our Muslim enemies will fear us and put their weapons down and stop fighting us. But so long as they see Israel as an Esav and not as Yisrael, not acting as the true Jewish nation in our ancestral home, they know it belongs to the Jewish people. The Quran is explicit, the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. But what are they saying? They're not really saying it doesn't belong to the Jewish people. They're saying you're not Jews. Because in their eyes, and again, they have the Quran, the Jewish people the manifestation of the Jewish people in the state of Israel today, it's a secular state more than a Jewish state. And the true battle taking place within the Jewish people is that battle between Yaakov and Yisrael. And I wouldn't say it's the battle. I mean, to understand what's going on the daily level, I explain it as a battle, because you have the Yaakov aspect of the Jewish people saying, no, we want to be like the rest of the world. We want to be Israelis like the French are to France and the British are to British, the Italians are Italian. No, we're not special. We're just Israelis. And then you have the Jewish spirit of Yisrael in the land of it growing every day. So it's not as much of a battle, but it's the process we're going through, that strengthening process of owning ourselves on the national level to be Yisrael. That's what we're going through. That's the ultimate, to actually attain that level when our enemies around the world are going to say, oh my God, the Jews are now truly back as the Jewish people. Everyone on his own religious level, but on a national sense, seeing the Jews are acting like the Jews. And that's when the anti-Semitism will die. and our enemies will stop fighting us because they see the Jews are back, which entails also us reclaiming the biblical borders. As God said, these are the borders that the Jewish people are supposed to have, because we're only going to have those borders when we're back and secure in our identity as Israel, and then all the other barriers are going to fall down.
You know, there's an Israeli journalist who is religious. I forget his name. He's a religious observant journalist. But he started off as a very secular, very liberal, pro-peace with Palestinian kind of guy. And what happened was he went to a funeral of a terrorist. And at that funeral, another terrorist tried to shoot him. Because he was so liberal. I'm gonna go to the terrorist funeral, right? We're gonna show them that we love them. We're gonna build bridges. Another terrorist tried to shoot him, and he missed him by an inch. This terrorist
to shoot the journalist.
He tried to shoot the journalist. Yeah. So it's a famous story, and if I say it correctly, I hope that you'll be able to identify. Maybe you heard of it. Anyway, so what happened was that the shooter gets put into jail, and the journalist comes to interview him in jail. Why did you try to kill me? Why did you try to kill me? So the terrorist says to him, similar to your story earlier, he says, I tried to kill you because you're an idiot. What do you mean I'm an idiot? He says, I was about to kill you and you don't even know why you were going to be killed. You think that who you are is a person of the world, a citizen of the world. You think that you're a man of democracy, a man of ideas, a man of free ideas. You're a Jew. And I was killing you because you're a Jew. And you're about to die, you almost died, for an identity that you don't even have a consciousness of. And that's why he says you're a fool. This journalist, he heard the story, and it made such an impression on him that he actually discovered his own Jewish identity to become a Torah observant journalist right now. It took a terrorist to be able to allow him to face his own soul. So the bottom line is, man, we Jews are not pawns in this game. We are in full control. We've been empowered since the beginning of time to make a difference. And it's what goes on in our hearts and minds that's going to chart the course of history. Yes, we need a strong military, but we also need a strong spiritual connection, equally as important. And when we're able to do that, to remember our Jewish identity with pride and not apologize for it, together with military and political and diplomatic strength, we've got a killer cocktail that is blessed from the beginning of time to be able to take us all the way to the coming of Mashiach.
Right, and connecting that to how you started and the Torah lifestyle and the mitzvot, that is what I call the secret sauce to ensure that our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren remain part of the tribe and continue part of Bnei Yisrael. Because as you said yourself, as we stop using that secret sauce, I'm just a cultural Jew. You have nothing to give over to the children to want to continue. And that's the secret and the beauty of the mitzvot. No matter how hard it might be to live and follow the mitzvot and commandments and Shabbat and holidays, that's Jewish continuity.
Beautiful. Chazak.
Always a pleasure, Rabbi Vigler. Always a pleasure.
Power.
Jewish power is the spiritual power connected with the physical world. That's the true ultimate understanding of Israel, of Yaakov Avinu turning into Israel. Everyone, you're not yet following Rabbi Vigler on YouTube. Here's the link. Go follow for unbelievable Torah all the time from him. You're not yet following Pulse of Israel, where I give you the belief-based, inspiring, politically incorrect analysis of the world today. Go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. And yes, we are a donor-based operation. Heavily censored. It's thanks to your donations that we're able to make these videos, and we want them seen by many more people. We need many more donations. Every once in a while, when you're able to, go to pulseofisrael.com and click on the donate button. In the meantime, Shalom, signing off not from our ancestral homeland, but from the holy place that Rabbi Vigler and his wife have created here for the Jewish community in Palm Beach Gardens. And from here, they should all be inspired to one day come to Israel as soon as possible. Next time, hopefully soon, I'll be back home. Shalom, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Shalom and thank you.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.